Everyone to the first Biteback meeting for the year, for the webinar. We are going to have two presentations tonight, one on the New South Wales Dog Fence Extension project from the project manager, Justin Schick, and we're going to have one from Greg Patrick on the new mandatory baiting regulations in SA and what that means for you, and followed by a question and answer session on that new regulations. So I've asked everyone to turn off their microphones and put themselves on mute during the presentations. This doesn't prevent you from asking questions. If at the end of the presentations you want to ask questions, you can choose to turn your microphones back on and ask verbally, or you can type it in the little chat function in Teams. So that's the little chat bubble, that looks like a speech bubble, located at the top of your screen. You can type it in there and I will then read it out loud and get the presenter to answer it. If you'd like to speak verbally your question, there's a little emoji with a hand raise option at the top of your screen. You can click on that and I'll then call on you to answer your questions. Just make sure you turn your microphone back on before you start talking, otherwise we only get half of your question. So from that, I'm going to hand over to Justin. So he's going to talk about the New South Wales Dog Fence Extension.
Good. Thank you, Anna. So I'm Justin Schick, obviously, as Anna said, on the project manager for the New South Wales Wild Dog Fence Extension project. I've got a little bit of a presentation here that you may or may not be able to see. My internet's not the best either, as much as probably all you guys are on the same type of internet as I, with the satellite on the roof, but we'll see how we go. By all means, jump in, hit the little man with the hand up, and if you want to ask a question throughout the thing, and I'll try and catch it. So don't be afraid to do that. I'll turn my camera back off and try and present a screen here. Just Anna, can you let me know if this comes up, please?
Yeah, I'm looking at your start screen of the presentation screen.
Perfect. All right, thank you. See if I can make this technology work. There's a lot of stuff in this. A lot of you guys probably already know a lot of this stuff anyway, but I wasn't 100% sure on the audience I was going to have, so I'll just add a little bit of background stuff in there as well. So please just bear with me if you already know all this sort of stuff. But obviously, wild dogs are significant. They significantly impact livestock, and then obviously restrict production options generally. The economic impact is believed to be up around $111 million per annum nationwide in Australia. So, and $22 million of that is in New South Wales. So, a pretty fair number of killings obviously with that, and you know, other issues that wild dogs cause. So, they cause obviously a lot of financial issues and psychological and stress and producers, you know, they, especially in the drought times, it just puts a layer on everything else that's going on. So it's quite tough. And then obviously, you know, the more money that they cost the producer, they can't spend that in the community. So it all just funnels down to the communities and so on. So they certainly cause a lot of destruction in the environment of a farmer. So in New South Wales, the wild dogs are declared a pest species by the LLS Act, which is, I guess, good and bad for us as a trying to get this thing off the ground. This map, a lot of you will be definitely familiar with. This is a map of the current dog fence that goes across Australia, and obviously South Australia is a big part of that. Our current fence in New South Wales is 583 kilometres long across the Queensland and South Australian borders, and obviously forms part of the main barrier fence. And it's, when maintained properly, is very effective. We're planning on extending the fence by approximately 350 kilometres down the South Australian border from the end of the current fence down to the Murray River. We did extend it a little bit. You probably would have heard a lot about, or maybe heard a lot about, it was 320 kilometres originally, and you'll actually see that on the next map. We did extend it a little bit to get it all the way down to the Murray River, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, just to obviously finish it off on a hard barrier. So hopefully that'll help. And obviously a little bit added in the Queensland one as well, and that's more about just going in and around terrain and issues and things like that. So a little bit added up there. It's 440 kilometres up from 420. So hopefully that'll sort of fix. It'll end up on the geez, I can't even remember the river up there at Mungandai now, but anyway, it'll end up there on another hard barrier, so that'll be good. Obviously, it's stopping wild dogs come across the border from other places is the whole idea of it. Obviously, there's a few shires there that are going to be affected or benefit probably, sorry, from the fence when it goes in. So that'll be good for all those people. This is a bit of a map. Like I said, early stages, I just plucked this out of some other stuff I had, so that the figures haven't changed on there yet. But that's basically where it is. If you're not 100% sure on all those places, this is Hungerford up here, all the way through to Mungandai, and that's Broman's Gate, or roughly Broman's Gate at the bottom of the existing fence down through to the Murray River now. So all pretty good. All started out with a feasibility study. It was kicked off by some members of the Fence Maintenance Board, and probably a few other people got involved as well, landholders and stuff in the Western area, got involved and were really keen on getting this whole project up and running. They were really pushed hard to try and gain a bit of funding just to get a feasibility study done. They got that money through LLS, and then obviously went on ahead and Soil Conservation Service did the feasibility study in 2018 and finished it off in 2009, or finalised it in 2019, which was just before the election. And then the guys jumped back on board from the Border Fence Maintenance Board and crew, and tried to lobby a few ministers and whatnot, and obviously came up with some money. So it was all very well timed, I suppose, and whatnot. So there's a big push there. Obviously, there's a lot of things behind it and why the reasoning for it. There's a lot of agricultural outputs that can be gained by having the fence there. Like I mentioned earlier, there's quite a lot of destruction with dogs, so there's certainly a lot of gain from a big fence, and amongst other things that happen with baiting and whatnot. So it can all help in the actual construction of the fence. They're talking about creation of up to 85 jobs, which is definitely possible, and most likely that'll happen, and probably go above and beyond that. And then obviously there's going to be that'll funnel down into supply chain and whatnot, and also ongoing management of the fence once it's completed. There'll be a few jobs there as well. So this is back to the election commitment. Obviously, like I said earlier, they got it at perfect timing when everyone was winning an election, so they were promising all sorts of things. The big issue with it was obviously it went straight from feasibility study to build, and missed out on a business case, which would have highlighted a lot of the issues we're having currently with getting this thing over the line. I think all three of the major parties in New South Wales agreed to promise to put it forward if they won the election. So it was pretty well taken up by everyone. So it's good. I work for Soil Conservation Service, and we are the main delivering head, with some help from other government entities in New South Wales. Through the good stuff, I suppose, now. So this is the fence design. Some of you may or may not be familiar with it. It's the same as the existing, what the Border Fence Maintenance Board currently use. And that's obviously all the designs come through them. They sign off to make sure, obviously, from a maintenance point of view and things like that, they want to make sure it's easy to handle and maintain in the future, and it stands up to the test of time. They've had the experience with it, so we always go through them if we've got a design change or whatever. So this is the basic fence. I'd say 90% of the fence is going to be this design. Obviously, terrain issues causes a few problems in some places where we've got to change the design a little bit, maybe have an apron on it or floating fences through water and things like that. But that's the basics of it. 1800 high, it'll be 150, 15 exclusion wire to that height, and then it'll have a 300mm gap to the ground, which will be covered by this this chain mesh, plastic coated chain mesh, which will be buried 300mm and overlap the 150 by 300mm. So very strong fence, maxi star posts or heavy duty star posts every 5 meters, and then a strainer post every 250 meters. So yes, pretty substantial and superior fence. And every intersecting fence that comes onto this main fence will have a gate where the maintenance guys can get through with graders and machinery and utes and whatever else. So it should be fairly easy to get along all the way from Mungandai to the Murray River if you want to go for a drive one day. That's just a plan of the fence. This stuff, you'll get all this stuff in, obviously with the video, so you can have a bit of a look at it if you want. Go back and have a bit of a squiz at that drawing. Just yell out and we can get it to you. There's big with us as being a government agency. It's not just a matter of going out and building a fence. Unfortunately, like a lot of you guys would as farmers or landholders, it's certainly, I guess a lot of people, especially in the feasibility side of it, thought that could happen to a point, but it's certainly nothing like that at all. It's extremely complex, and obviously 3 state approvals we need, and the Commonwealth has thrown in there to boot, and just a lot of landowners are certainly no issue. Everyone wants the fence. There's no doubt about that. But there's so many little moving parts in this job. It's just a super complex, especially on the approval side of it. It's just it's really hard. So we have biodiversity, Aboriginal cultural heritage. We have roadways and other things that we need to, like registrations and things we need to cover off to make sure that we're allowed to do all this stuff on different land titles and whatever else. So there's a lot of stuff to do. Aboriginal cultural heritage, obviously a huge one. There wasn't thought to be anything out there, but there's never been a project out there before. And once they've done their initial surveys, they've found quite a lot of things, items and areas and places along the South Australian border. So that's we've already had to relocate the fence in a few places to go around some really significant stuff. But generally, it'll all be able to be moved, but it's just going to cost money and take time. So it's not. I wouldn't say that's a hold up. It's probably, but it might be in the future, depending on how you can get it through. Biodiversity is a big one. We have to pay biodiversity offsets when we knock over a few trees, and obviously, we're going to put a fence up, so that causes a huge barrier for animal movement and things like that. So that's another whole issue as well. So we have to do some animal surveys and see what's out there and how they move and what sort of habitats and things that are there that we're going to cause issues with when we put a fence up. So quite a lot in it out there. We have to do a full environmental impact statement, and all this stuff will go into it, and then people can have a bit of a say on it. Like I said about so you got all the legislation in the Commonwealth, approval process, sorted all that out. So where are we up to now? So we've done a 15-kilometre pilot site near Hungerford. A lot of people would have seen that on TV and all sorts of things when the current minister at the time, Adam Marshall, went out there and said his few words, which is good to get that over the line. We sort of did that as a bit of a trial to see how a few of our systems would work and things like that. And it was really good for us as a bit of a learning experience, and we certainly gained a lot out of it. Unfortunately, we haven't done a whole lot since. We've done another little 11-kilometre section, and that's as far as we've got. And that was it with the help of a landholder. Everything else is all still under the approvals issue. So the big one for you guys and what you probably want to hear about is the 32 kilometre section. I see Dean's in here. We've been working a lot with Dean at Malleangry Station to try and get some information and things about this particular piece of fence. There's a lot of stuff with native title and things that we've got to go through that Dean's helping us with to get some information. With that section, we were very keen to get that going and meet the new South Australian fence that's hit the border there now. That was supposed to be done at Christmas not this last one, going the one before that, and obviously that never happened. And I don't know how close we actually are to getting that done, but it's held up in red tape as well. So tough one, but we will have hopefully very soon get some Aboriginal heritage mitigation done out there, which is where they go out and move all the stuff and get it out of our way, and we can as soon as we get the approvals required, we can get in there and attack it. So that should all start very soon out there. So I don't want to give you on any false hope, but hopefully we'll have that completed by the end of the year, which is a lot of people who just probably put their head in their hands there. But anyway, we'll see how that plays out. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a few landholders that are helping us out up in Queensland to get a few sections done. A lot of money's been spent in Queensland on exclusion fencing, and a lot of them are on the border, and the landholders aren't doing their border section, obviously because waiting for us to come through, and then they've been getting sick of waiting, so they're jumping on board and helping us basically, which is great. Like I mentioned about the assessments earlier with the cultural heritage and the EIS and environmental impact statement and EPBC Act, environmental protections. I can't remember, sorry, but something like that. So that's the Commonwealth, and so on. There's all these little other things that we have to do with traffic and railway and all sorts. We've set up a panel of suppliers for materials and construction separately. So when we actually get to go, it's going to be fairly streamlined and it should be fairly quick to get all that stuff off the ground and get into it as soon as we get some approval. So that'll be a good start to us at the other end. And obviously the construction will start after the approvals are gained. Completion of the fence, like I said, depending on the approvals, it's a tough one. I can't give a definitive answer when we're actually going to start, so I'm certainly not going to give an answer as when we're going to finish. Theories, it should take about 12 to 15 months to do the South Australian side, and a very similar time, or maybe a little bit more, to do the Queensland one. If the hope is we can run them in conjunction, but it just depends on approval. So we'll see how we go. We are pretty keen and hopeful that we're going to get Queensland approval in the next, within probably the next 5 to 6 months, and then we can get into it up there and hopefully have a fair bit done before Christmas. But like I said, I'm not promising anyone anything because I've done that before, and here we are, still 12 months behind at a minimum. Obviously, on the project team side of things, we're flat out in the background trying to get things done, although it doesn't look like it. We certainly are. So it's there's no reason at this stage why it won't go ahead. A lot of talk in the background out there from a lot of landholders that saying it's not going to happen. Well, that's not true. It is going to happen. Well, we hope it's going to happen. And as everything at this stage is pointing towards it will. So there's no problem at the moment. It's just obviously a huge, quite a large delay, and that could ongoing delays with depending on what happens with the approval side of things. That's about it. So I'm open to questions. I'm sure there's a few. So if you can keep them one at a time, that would be great. And obviously, for further information, you can get hold of me personally or email us at these email sites, or there's good information always updated on LLS website. So jump in there if you want to have a look anytime. I think once a month it gets updated in there, and there's obviously LLS newsletters that go out and stuff, but there's always info in there if you ever want to have a look. So please fire away. Don't leave me hanging. I hope you didn't all walk away when I started out. Oh, is there anyone out there?
Well, I'll ask one. Once the approvals are all coming through, how long do you reckon it will take to actually physically start either just clearing?
Yeah, so hopefully it depends on how it comes about. We're not 100% sure how those approvals are going to come through. If they can give us a heads up and say, yeah, look, it's going to be approved, it'll probably be approved in a month or 2 months or whatever it's going to be, then obviously that'll be a big help for us and we can get things organised. If they just say here's your approval done, then it's probably still going to take us a month or two to get organised. But yeah, it's a bit of a tough one because sort of a catch-22. You can't really go ahead and organise contractors if you don't have approval and you're not guaranteed to get approval. So they say yes, you'll get approval, but we have to sign all the paperwork and get everyone to do this and that. Then obviously we can move on that. But if they don't do that for us, then it's going to be a bit harder. So to answer your question, I don't really know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We have one question from Peter Litchfield.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, Peter.
I'm just wondering, how do you get on with your fence when you're crossing a road that's bigger than what requires a gate?
Yes, so there's a few spots, especially on the South Australian border, obviously with the highway there at Coburn and stuff. There's a highway and the railway line fairly close together there. Obviously, we've got to go out around Coburn to get out and around the town. So those particular places there, we've actually found a couple of bridges we can run it under, which is good. We've had a lot of chats with South Australian, I don't know what they call themselves, Transport Department or whatever they are over there, and they don't want us to run a fence on to the road and have a run through or whatever you might want to call it, because they don't want to push animals onto the road in front of cars and things like that. So they're very happy with us to go underneath the bridge, and then obviously if you're just on the western side of Coburn, there's quite tall railway bridge, so we're going to also go underneath that one, which then will allow animals to move up either side of the fence and not affect the road or the railway line. So that's the theory on that one. Obviously, when there's a grid already there, we're just going to build a bigger grid, bigger, wider, deeper grid, so that the fence will meet the grid on the side, obviously, and animals can't jump over it. There's new grids these days, and I think actually I got a lot of information from the South Australian fence that they have vermin-proof grids which have got a angle line on them, sort of facing downwards, so animals can't walk on the top of the RHSs or whatever the grids are made from. So they'll have vermin-proof grids that are going to be wide, deep, and quite substantial. And then obviously, if there's small, tiny little, station roads or whatever, they'll just have a gate put back there. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Real good.
No worries. Anyone else got anything? Quiet. Must have been sorry, Patrick. No, must have been a good presentation.
Well, you definitely covered a lot.
Yeah. Now look, if anyone's got any questions at all, just like I said, that last slide there, that's got an email address. You can flick it through to there. You can give me a call. My number's on everywhere. Probably I could have put it on here, but I didn't. Yeah, it's no issue. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone's got about it. Yeah, it's certainly an ongoing project. It's not going to be easy for anybody. Obviously, once we get to the fencing side of it, it's going to be a lot more straightforward. Just got to get through the approval process first. We do what we can. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you very much, Justin, for giving that presentation. If no one else has any questions, we might move on to Greg about the new regulations.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Appreciate it. I'm going to head off, but yeah, like I said, any questions, just yell out.